All right, welcome back to the next video of the series. And in this video, we're going to go ahead and start doing our GraphQL queries. First thing we need to do is just add some dependencies. All right, so let's go ahead and end our server. And let's hit Command T because I want to do this in a new tab. You don't have to. And then we're going to cd into our client, and then we're going to add multiple dependencies. So we're going to add our Apollo client. We're going to add GraphQL. We're going to add moments so that we can format our dates that we get from our API, and then we're going to add styled components. And then we're also going to add another dependency called React Spinners. All right, let's go ahead and press enter and let that do its thing. And then if we go over to our source folder, let's go ahead and create a folder called, we need to create a folder called containers. This is where our jobs page and our job page will be housed. Let's create another folder called components. This is where our components will live. And then let's create another folder called GraphQL. All right. Let's see how, okay, so those are done. We're all done with that. So let's go back to our other tab. If you didn't do a new tab, just go back to the GitHub jobs directory and just type yarn dev, and then let that start back up again. Okay, all right, so let's go to our app.js, which we're in. Another thing we need to add, which I forgot, let's add React router DOM. And that's for, that's so we can switch pages. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do our first query or get that set up. All right, so in our folder, let's create a new file. We'll call that providers, or provider, sorry, not JS, okay? And in our provider folder, we're going to import React from React. And then we need to import a couple of things from Apollo client. Okay, so we need to import Apollo clients. We need to import in-memory cache, and that allows for a faster application. It'll actually cache whatever we request from our API. We have Apollo provider. We're going to be importing HTTP link, and then something called from. All right. Let's put our semicolon up. Okay. Let's import something called on error from Apollo client / link / error. All right. All right, so let's first let's create our GraphQL provider. All right. It's going to be an arrow function That should be outside of the parentheses. And then we need to destructure children, because this is going to be a wrapper for all of our components, or a higher order component. And that will be an Apollo provider. We haven't created our client, we will be. So we're going to pass our client, and then we'll destructure and pass our children. And let's export that. GQL provider. Okay. All right, so let's create our client. So const clients equals new Apollo client. All right. And that accepts our cache, which is a new in-memory cache. And usually you can just go ahead and type the URI directly into the Apollo client, but we're going to add some error handling just in case we have an error connecting to our API. All right, so we'll say link, and we haven't created our link yet, so const link equals, and we're going to be using that from which we imported, error link. We haven't created our error link. So we're going to create a link to our error. We'll just say error link. And then we need to create a new HTTP link. URI. This is where we'll put our URI in. And that is /GraphQL. And remember, the reason we can put /GraphQL instead of the localhost /GraphQL, localhost 3500, is because we created that proxy. All right, and then let's create our error link. This will just handle our error. So on error, if we have one, we're going to destructure GraphQL. Errors, and then network error. So if we have GraphQL errors, or network error, we're just going to console.log. Error connecting to GraphQL and client. All right, in our client, and then we're just going to put the error message in. So we need to map our errors. So we just say GraphQL errors dot map location and our path. Let's add our message in. All right, and that should be that. Let's go back to our app.js. I know that was a lot. Let's import our GQL provider from, actually it should be in the GraphQL folder /provider. All right, perfect. And then what we need to do is let's create a new file in our GraphQL folder. Let's call it queries. This is where we're gonna set up our queries. So we'll say import GQL from our Apollo client. And then we're going to be creating our first query. And in our first query, we're just going to load our jobs. All right, so let's start setting up our query. Sorry. So in our jobs, we want our ID, we want our title, we want our type. Oh. Do we add our type? I don't think we added it. Let's go back to our server. Let's see the docs. Nope, we did not. So let's go back to our server. We made a quick mistake, or we forgot to add something. Let's go to our type defs. And then we'll say type string. All right. And then in our resolver, we added type. We just didn't add it there. Okay. So we can close our type def and our resolver. Let's go ahead and stop our server and then restart it. Okay, let's refresh this. And we should have, there we go, our type. All right. What else do we need? We need created at. Created at. We need our location. We need the URL. Actually, we don't need the URL now. We need the company. And we only need the name and the logo URL of the company. Let's run that query. And there we go. All right, perfect. So we can go ahead and we'll copy and paste this. So we'll copy, and then first we're going to type query. We're going to call it jobs, and then just paste that in. All right, just like that. Okay, and then what we need to do is in our app.js, or actually in our containers folder, we'll do an app.js containers. So we'll create a new file, or actually a new folder, and we'll call it jobs. We'll create another folder, call that job. Oops, I think we did this wrong. Let's redelete. Job. All right, in our jobs, we'll just type index.js, RAFCE. We'll say jobs. Okay. All right. Let's import our jobs. There goes our jobs. Perfect. Okay. So in our jobs, we need to go ahead and import useQuery from our Apollo client. And then we need to import our load jobs. GraphQL queries. Load jobs. All right, perfect. So with our use query, it actually gives us 3 items. So let's say use query. All right, and that accepts our load jobs query that we created here. All right, and then we're going to destructure. What it's going to give us is loading, so the status of if it's loading or not. It's going to tell us if we have an error, and then it's going to give us our data. All right, what we just want to do is console.log our data whenever it comes through. So let's inspect. There's our data, and there's our jobs. Okay. All right, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to start passing our jobs into individual components, and we're also going to be creating an individual job query. So yeah, that's it for this one. See you guys in the next one.